So one thing about me is that I grew up low income and now I'm rich. That's sort of a joke. I don't know if I would consider myself rich. I'm like upper middle to upper class depending on where I am and how my businesses are doing at any given moment. But what I really mean by rich in a functional sense is that I just don't have to worry about money on a day-to-day basis, and I haven't for many years. And people always told me that the older I got, and especially the more money I got, the more conservative I would become, and if anything, it has made me radically the opposite. And in fact, something I actually struggle with and have been to therapy about before is my extreme resentment toward people who grew up wealthy and either downplay it or don't acknowledge it or are dishonest about it. Because having been low income and still having a lot of family who is low income and now living the way I do, I realized just how fucking unfair the world is. Like, my life is so different now than it was when I was growing up. It's as if I'm living on a completely different planet. And it's not just the straight up money stuff of like, I can afford to replace things when they break. I don't have to check prices at the grocery store. Like, I can get things if I need them. That's all great. But it's also a lot of the more subtle things. Like, I have so many more chances, so many more opportunities. I'm allowed to make mistakes. Like, I'm really proud of how my novel came out and how well it's been doing, but I was also able to invest $45,000 into it and know that I could afford to lose it. And I think back to how insecure I used to be back in my earlier 20s and not understanding what I was doing wrong, that life seemed to be so much easier for some of the people around me than it was for me. Only later did I realize that not only were in many cases their parents still paying half their rent, they also were able to move around the world with the knowledge that if something really went wrong, they had people, i.e. usually their parents, that they could fall back on. Like, they were walking around thinking of a potential inheritance, not how am I going to be able to support my parents when they can no longer physically work. Like, the other day I was with some boomers who are all very well off, but in that way where they don't talk about it and just say like, oh, we're comfortable, which by the way I consider a form of gaslighting. But at one point they're all literally talking about their second homes and I just wanted to scream. Like, don't you guys realize that you're living in a parallel universe? Like, this is not normal. And although I'm obviously now in a social class that's closer to them than the one I grew up in, I'll never shake the feeling that like I'm from planet Earth and I'm visiting now on an alien planet and I know it's not real. Anyway, take it from someone who knows the difference. People who say money can't buy happiness are just trying to gaslight you into being okay with being poor.